This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Bill Cunningham on Demand.
I make a rich woman beg, and I make a good woman steal. I make an old woman blush, and I make a young girl squeal. I wanna be yours, pretty baby, yours and yours alone. I'm here to tell you, honey, that I'm bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad to the bone.
All right, Billy Cunningham, the great American. Big doings now in Wisconsin and beyond, plus Facebook continues to fall. Joining me now on the Celebrity Hotline, live from somewhere in the wilds of Nevada, is my good friend and yours, Wayne Allyn Root. And Wayne Allyn Root, welcome again to the Bill Cunningham Show.
Hey, Bill, great to be on, and it's a great week to be an American after Tuesday's results. Great week. I'm excited. You're getting Wayne Root in a good mood for the first time in probably a year on your show. I keep saying how
Root is a happy man.
I keep saying America's gone and America's Europe. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
America woke up on Tuesday night. America may not be Europe. There may be hope for my 4-year-old daughter. There may be hope for our kids and grandkids. I think we woke up. This is the beginning of the end for union dominance. I'm not saying unions are going away, but union dominance has ended with Tuesday night, not just Wisconsin, but also what happened in California.
What happened? I didn't pay much attention to California. What happened there?
Well, here's the thing. California is the most tofu-eating, sun-fried brain state in America, and they are so liberal they make Wisconsin look conservative, and they love their union employees. And in both San Diego, the 8th largest city in America, and San Jose, the 10th largest city in America, they both had major referendums on the ballot to reform union pensions and radically cut their government employee pensions. And the unions were freaking out and saying, you're killing us, and don't you love your teachers and your police and your fire? And guess what? Those reforms won much bigger than Wisconsin. 66-34 in San Diego, 70% to 30% in San Jose. Landslide victories for anyone who wants to cut back on this union insanity.
Well, you see, I want to pat you on the back a little bit. I had less faith than you had a few weeks ago because looking back over the last 10 to 15 to 20 years, public sector labor unions are like undefeated, untied, and unscored on. They win every time they battle, whether it was California, Ohio, Florida, Georgia. They always win. They never lose. But I think what's happened, and you said that you thought the people of Wisconsin would arise, and I said there's no way in Madison, in Milwaukee, that's going to happen. And the margin of victory was well above the polling. The polling had it 51-49. I listened to a couple of your good friends on MSNBC like Ed Schultz and Rachel Maddow. During the day, they were going crazy. The turnout is huge. Another one of your buddies, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, was on during Tuesday saying, you know what, the lines are out the door. What they're doing is confusing public sector unions on one hand with the middle class on the other. And the two things are completely different. But what was amazing is that you predicted it would happen. I kind of had my doubts because I looked at history, and like in Ohio, it has never happened before. But if it's going on in Wisconsin, which is a people's paradise, and it's going on in California, which is the situs of socialism/communism, maybe there's a chance for the rest of the country. Maybe.
Yeah, well, listen, a lot of people keep saying to me this morning, you know, I've done interviews all week since this happened, and the hosts all over the country keep asking me, Wayne, how did you predict this? Because I said it was going to be a big win, 7 to 10 points. It was 11 throughout most of the night. When I woke up the next day, it actually had gone somewhere between 7 and 9. No one has been quite sure yet until all the absentee ballots are counted, but it's close to a double-digit win, just as I predicted. If people go, how did you know that? Well, couple things. Number one tip-off was Obama would not campaign in Wisconsin. That's bizarre, Bill. Why would the President of the United States, who loves unions, who gets all his money from unions, who won Wisconsin by, I believe, 14 points in 2008, why would he not step foot in the state to campaign for Tom Barnett, the mayor of Milwaukee, running against Walker. Why? And the answer is because Democrat internal polling showed this was going to be a double-digit huge win, and nothing he could do would change it, and he didn't want the stink of a huge defeat on his carcass come November. So that's the reason Obama wouldn't campaign, and I knew that was a horrible sign. And number two, I'm a gut instinct guy. As a Vegas odds maker, I'm a guy who, when it came to sports, I've been winning for 25 years, as you know. Number one odds maker ever, star on the sidewalk in Vegas. How did I get that? I'm a guy who will speak to 10 people. If 10 people all say the same thing, I know there's a pattern, and it means something far more than 10 people. It means thousands of people are thinking the same thing. So when I spoke to hundreds of my friends for the last month, and they all started telling me how angry they are at public employee unions, how angry they are at collective bargaining, how taxpayers are being ripped off, how the country's going broke, how we can't afford the pensions, I said, wow, it's finally caught up. The tidal wave is here. The people have awoken from their long-term slumber, and they're going to take their wrath out on the public employee unions who have been ripping us off with collective bargaining for 50 years. And guess what? Here's the deal, Bill. Did you know this little fact of trivia? Wisconsin was the first state in America to approve collective bargaining for their government employees. So it's an historical place where they knocked it out. And this means something big. This will embolden all of us out there who can't stand the big pensions unions are getting, the obscene money they're getting, and always thought if you knock them and attack them, you're automatically going to lose. Not true anymore. The tide has turned.
I'll give you some tips on this. Governor Walker said, and it's true throughout the country, whether it's Ohio, Florida, Michigan, whatever, that some of these public sector employees will call in sick for a shift, and then they will work the next shift at overtime. Because
right.
If you call in sick, you work the next shift, you get time and a half. With firefighters and cops and teachers, especially with firefighters, if someone is within 3 to 6 months of retirement, a firefighter will constantly call in sick with a bad back, a bad knee, not feeling well, and someone about to retire will work a double shift, all of which he makes double money from, but then when he retires, it's based upon the high final, the FSA, the final 3 years, and then when you get that, your pension is higher for the rest of your life by gaming the system. And
right.
Collective bargaining meant that you could never impose rules on union members without going through arbitration and then collective bargaining and then final binding arbitration. And cities and counties and states can't afford the process of all the cost associated with this, so they'll roll over and play dead. So that snowplow truck operators in Wisconsin made $150,000 a year by gaming the system. School bus drivers in Madison regularly make $100,000 driving a school bus because of the union contract, and they've had enough.
And what about what they're going to make when they retire at the age of 50 if they live to 90, which nowadays the lifespan says if you make it to 50, you're probably automatically going to make it to 80. You got a great shot at 90. You even have an outside shot at 100. What if a guy retires at 50? I don't care if he's a bus driver, if he's a snowplow driver, if he's a policeman or fireman. You retire at 50 and you live to 100. That's 50 years of $100,000 a year. Do the math. By the time you add in cost of living increases, by the time you add in health care, which, by the way, just the last 2 months of your life, terminal care might be $2 million hospital bill. When you add it up, you're talking about paying $5 to $10 million is in a golden parachute to somebody who retires at the age of 50. It might even be 12 or 15 million, not for a fire chief of a town with hundreds of employees, but for an average foot soldier, just a policeman on the beat, $5 to $10 million. It's insanity. And what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas, Bill. What happens in Vegas spreads throughout the country. This is not a casual thing where firemen just call in sick and by themselves they decide that might help my overtime and help my pension. In Vegas, it has been proven that the firemen were in a conspiracy, and all the fire captains and fire chiefs would keep everybody's schedule a year in advance and work out what days you were supposed to call in sick, because the contract said if you called in sick 3 days in a row, you need to have a doctor's written excuse. But if it's less than 3 days, you don't need an excuse. So they plotted out on giant charts, computerized charts. every fireman in all of Clark County, Las Vegas, would take exactly 2 days off this week and 2 days off next week and 2 days off the beginning of next month, and pretty soon everybody got giant overtime for working for their sick colleagues who weren't sick, who were swimming in their backyard pools. This is a conspiracy, and I'm telling you, if it happened in Vegas, it's happening everywhere. Start checking. Wherever you live, your firemen are gaming the system, your government employees are gaming the system, or how about this one, Bill? Even if they don't get it for their retirement, how about if they don't call in sick? In most places in this country, if you work for 20, 25 years and you don't call in sick, you might get a quarter of $1,000,000 the day you retire for your unused sick days.
I'll give you another example. I have a great knowledge. I broadcast from Cincinnati. We had a police chief who spent like 38 years in the department, retired about the age of 60. And because he did not use his sick time, in my business, you don't roll it over. And that I don't know what we get at Clear Channel, say we get 20 days a year. If you don't use it, you lose it. He had a check waiting for him when he retired from the city of Cincinnati at $1.1 million a year, $1.1 million in unused comp time, $1.1 million. He also had a pension of $130,000 a year for the rest of his life, and he also had cost of living and free medical for the rest of his life, and that was not unusual. In fact, I have knowledge of this in the city of Cincinnati. Cops and firefighters retire with fat checks for them, hundreds of thousands of dollars of unused sick time, unused so-called comp time. Right. And then on top of that, they get a pension of north of $100,000 a year, plus free medical, plus cost of living. And the city of Cincinnati is nearing bankruptcy.
You're missing one of the biggest scams. You've left out probably the single biggest scam no one knows about, which is if a policeman or fireman, and by the way, let me say this out loud, I think most policemen and firemen are, in fact, heroes. And I love them for what they do and the risk they take. Doesn't mean they deserve $200,000 a year for the rest of their lives or a $1.1 million check on the day they retire for their unused vacation. There's two different stories there. But you could still acknowledge they're heroes, they're good people, and no one wants to take most of it away. You just got to cut some of it or we're going bankrupt. But the story is that many firemen and policemen, I know this for a fact, in New York City, I'm not sure how often you could do it everywhere, but my guess is it probably is everywhere, if they ever get a boo-boo on the job, and I'm not talking about a legitimate injury like getting shot, I'm just talking of a fireman twists his knee in his last year, something that normally wouldn't even bother him, but in his last year, he goes before a board, he says, I'm crippled for the rest of my life. They award him a disability judgment, and that means 2/3 of his pension, which is already $150,000 for the rest of his life every year, 2/3 of it is tax-free for life. Can you imagine? It's not about getting shot. It's not about being burned over 90% of your body. There are countless stories in New York City of firemen and policemen who claim disability, and now they're on their bowling team. They play tennis every day. They play golf every day. Or they've taken up a second job working serious, strenuous stuff while they claim they were disabled and get 2/3 tax-free the rest of their lives. This just has to stop. Our country's bankrupt. We will become Greece. I do feel great this morning because of what happened in California, Wisconsin this week. I feel like there is a chance we've moved away from California and the Greece model and the Spain model and the Italy model. I feel like Americans are different than Europeans, Bill, and we are trying to avert the cliff. Whether we will or not is still up in the air. But there is hope this week for the first time in a long time.
Now, secondly and lastly, with Wayne Allyn Root, you have a posting about how Facebook is similar to Barack Hussein Obama. Please explain.
Well, listen, I was sitting around thinking about this Facebook debacle, and it is absolutely a debacle, and it's embarrassing. It's probably the worst IPO in modern Wall Street history, if not one of the top 10 in the history of Wall Street. I mean, it's a big disappointment. I believe when I last looked earlier this week, I believe Facebook is down about 40% from its IPO, which is just such an impossibility, such an embarrassment, and it just shows you, same thing with Obama. Two groups Facebook and Obama, two people, two groups, two companies, whatever you want to call them, two entities that were elected, or people decided they were popular, or people bought their stock based on just popularity, just celebrity, just hype, just no results at all, simply saying Facebook and Obama sound good, they look good. But did anyone ever check on their credentials? Did anyone ever check if the hype had any truth in reality? Did anyone ever look if there's any there? And the answer is no. They were both sold on hype. They both were based on no results, and they're both crashing down, and they both have very negative implications for the United States of America. They're burning through a lot of Americans' money.
It's unbelievable, but the financial cliff that even President Bill Clinton now talks about, the financial cliff, there is no plan to stop it. But what happened in Wisconsin, what happened in California, what might happen in November would stop it. But we cannot continue to do exactly the same behavior, anticipating different results. We have a government at every level we can't afford. And I now have hope that I didn't have before, that things might be better, things might be different. In fact, we might have a country, Wayne Allyn Root, we're going to give to our kids better than the country our parents gave to us. There's a chance that we had. Can you imagine if Scott Walker had been defeated by 7, 8, 9, 10 points?
Right.
What would have happened then?
Well, it was all over. Then the unions just control the country, and we're on a slow slide towards Europe. And by the way, don't think the game's over. I'm never someone who's cocky or over-secure, because, just because you're winning 8-0 in the ninth doesn't mean, I can remember the Yankees losing, I believe, 9-0 to the Red Sox on the 100th anniversary of Fenway Park just about a month and a half ago, and the Yankees wound up scoring, I think, 13 straight runs and winning 13-9.
Yeah.
So you never know. Just because one union lost in Wisconsin and another one in California doesn't mean that they won't make a comeback and they won't raise more money than ever before. This won't get the Hornets angry and stir up the nest. But I do think it tends to be the canary in the coal mine. I think the people are angry. There's 21 million government employees, but there's 300-plus million Americans, and we can't run the whole country. The majority should not suffer on behalf of just the 21 million. So I think we got them outnumbered, and therefore I think now that they've awoken from their slumber and they realize they're being ripped off, the taxpayers will continually and consistently vote for union pension reform. Let's hope, Bill.
All right, well, Wayne Allyn Root, you're a great American. Good things may be happening. Give us your website once again, if any.
It is root4america.com, root4, F-O-R, America.com, and the book is The Conscience of a Libertarian. And by the way, Bill, almost the entire book was about union pensions and what they're doing to America and what unions are doing to America, and it was written in 2008. I predicted what Obama would do to America by embracing unions and becoming the most pro-union president ever. I predicted our economy would be destroyed, and perhaps whether it's temporary or forever would be the question, and it might be forever if he got a second term. And boy, I turned out to be a very good predictor.
You're like Nostradamus, and I tell you what, Wayne Allyn Root, you're a great American, and thanks again for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show.
Thank you, Bill. God bless, and let's keep rooting for America. We have a good week. This has been a good one. Root for America.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, let's continue with more. Billy Cunningham, the Great American Stooge Report, coming up and more at your home of the Reds, 700 WLW.